In Despicable Me 4, many things were left open, especially that ending, right? This video has spoilers, and I will explain all those details that were bad and others that were poorly explained, especially how Vector returned from space and the appearance of all the other villains from the franchise. To start, Despicable Me 4 is the 6th film in the franchise because there are 2 Minions spin-offs, and this is the most profitable animated franchise in cinema history, so relax, there will be more films from the franchise soon. Well, before talking about the villains, many people found the appearance of the Mega Minions super unnecessary, and it was. They were amazing characters with great potential that was wasted. It was more to sell product because they don't add to the movie story, and they could have had much more relevance. Maybe in Minions 3, they will appear in a better way. Dr. Nefario appeared in a 10-second scene, and many people didn't understand what he was doing with Gru Jr. He simply created an antidote that removed the cockroach effect from the baby, making him return to normal, and it must be the same antidote he offered to the AVL to apply to Maxine to make him return to his human form as well. In other words, the Minions managed to unfreeze Dr. Nefario, and he went back to working for Gru. He's even in the laboratory at Gru's house, and you are in another Cine Lovers channel video. At the end of the movie, Maxime Lumal goes to jail, and Gru visits him, and they talk until Gru confesses that he really stole Maxime's song at the school talent show. The guy gets really angry and challenges Gru to sing with him, and then the two put on a musical show in prison. When I saw this scene for the first time, I thought it was amazing to see all the villains together, but in the movie, they don't explain anything else. Let's go. Literally all the villains came back. Vector, El Macho, Balthazar Bratt, Mr. Perkins who is Vector's father, Scarlet, and her husband, and even the Vicious Six. There's a lot that wasn't explained in that scene. Well, first, the villains practically didn't age at all. From Despicable Me 1 to Despicable Me 4, little time actually passed. So, Vector, El Macho, and Bratt staying the same is okay. It works. But Scarlet, her husband, and the Vicious Six are villains from Minions 1 and Minions 2, which take place in the 1970s, and at that time, Gru was a child. Then time passed for Gru, about 40 years or so. And for the villains, it didn't. They put a bit of white hair and more wrinkles on their faces, but let's agree that time didn't pass for them as it did for Gru, and that wasn't good. Another example is Dr. Nefario himself. When he appears in the Minions movies, the guy is quite young. Then in Despicable Me, they made him super old, but it was more realistic because about 40 years passed between the end of Minions and the beginning of Despicable Me. So, this difference they make with the characters' ages is bad. Some age, and others don't. Besides, despite the final scene being partly nice to see the villains together and being a song I love very much, this detail about the ages is out of context, and the fact that everyone is dancing and singing super happily with Gru, considering that most of them went to jail because of him. Many have been in prison for over 30 years thanks to Gru. And this is only not worse than the ending of Kung Fu Panda 4 because DreamWorks had made a huge promotion that the 3 villains would return, and especially that Tai Lung would have a significant role. This created a lot of hype, and when the movie came out, everyone was disappointed. In other words, there was an expectation that was not met. Besides, the Kung Fu Panda villains are truly cruel. Tai Lung wanted to kill Po and Shifu. Shin is a murderer and psychopath, and Kai wanted to destroy and imprison all the masters. And then, in the end, they all bow to Po as if they love him, which was really bad. In the end of Despicable Me 4, even though it was a strange ending, Illumination did not promote the return of the villains, so there was no hype because we didn't even know. And they are funnier villains who don't commit the same atrocities as the Kung Fu Panda villains. So, this made the ending less bad, but it's still strange to see the villains happy, dancing with Gru, who is the main reason they are imprisoned. But the questions and open points didn't end there. The big question is, is, how did Vector come back to Earth? Well, after you've subscribed to the channel and turned on all notifications, I'll tell you. The short film where Vector appears was shown in theaters before the movie Migration premiered, and our orange pajama friend managed to leave the moon, where he had been since the end of the first movie, and go to Mars. Honestly, when I watched and saw that he left the moon and ended up on Mars, I thought it was awful. To me, he should have left the moon and come back to Earth, especially now that we know he did return to Earth. They could have shown that in the short film. But anyway, the short starts right after the first movie ends, so Vector spent a few minutes on the moon. When he got to Mars, he probably stayed a few hours at most, because otherwise, he wouldn't be able to survive there. Also, on the corner near Vector, there is the like button. If you saw it, leave a big like, so YouTube understands that the video is good, promotes it to more people, and our family grows. We are reaching 2,000 subscribers. My main goal is to bring entertainment and joy to as many people as possible. Thank you very much to each one of you. Well, to me what might have happened is that the minions knew that Vector was on Mars, so when they arrived on Earth, they informed Gru, and he asked the minions to go back, get Vector, and take him to prison. This must have happened a bit before Despicable Me 2 started, because Vector wouldn't have survived much longer there. Regarding Drew, I really wanted him to have a deserving role. He only appeared in the corner of the last scene of the movie, just to show that they hadn't forgotten about him. They could have given him more attention. He's a character who only appeared in one movie and became beloved by the audience. I personally don't like it when they create an amazing new character and then simply forget about him in the sequel. I hope he comes back for real in a future sequel. And by the way, I saw several comparisons between Despicable Me 4 and Inside Out 2, like, oh, one will crush the other, oh, one is much better than the other, and so on. Honestly, don't make those kinds of comparisons. Even though both are animations that are in theaters at the same time, they have different proposals. One will make you think a lot and get really emotional, while the other will make you laugh a lot and relax. You can watch both, and one doesn't take away from the beauty of the other. I even mentioned that Inside Out 2 would surpass $1 billion at the box office and become the highest-grossing Pixar animation to date, and both things happened. I'll even say more, Despicable Me 4 will reach $1 billion as well, and we'll still have more productions from both franchises, I'm sure. What I'm also sure about is that you need to remember the story of the first 3 Despicable Me movies, then click here and watch my spoiler analysis of Despicable Me 4, you won't regret it. Thank you very much for staying until the end, and I'll see you in the next video here on Cine Lovers.